Welcome back, everybody, to Uncensored CMO. Now, one of the success stories of the past few years in the financial services sector is Monzo Bank. They've transformed the way banking is done. Their brilliant customer service always come top in surveys. And I'm joined by the very appropriately named AJ Coyne, who is their VP for marketing and the guy in charge of leading the marketing for Monzo Bank. And in this episode, we talk about not only that, but also what he's learned throughout his career working both agency side and in fintech as well, and what he can pass on the tips and tricks for being a great marketeer. It's a lot of fun. Here's my conversation with AJ Coyne. Welcome, AJ.
Thank you for having me. It is great to be here.
So how did a guy called Coyne end up at Monzo Bank? Obvious question, I suppose.
I mean, I think, proof's in the name, hey? But Monzo is one of those companies that when they come calling and when they're looking for it, it's a dream gig. Monzo is one of those brands that you just don't say no to.
Well, it's a quickly becoming iconic brand, isn't it? But before we talk about that, take us a bit on the journey to Monzo and where you started out as well. And because you've got some fantastic agency experience along the way as well, haven't you? And then a few years at Klarna.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I started my career very much in the agency side, creative, working across Ogilvy, McCann, BBDO, and in my opinion, getting to one of the highest jobs you can get in an agency. My last job was GM at Clement BBDO in Australia, across Sydney and Melbourne. And it gives you a great learning ground, right? It gives you a good training. You are multi-category. I worked on everything from Xbox through to Pandora Jewelry, Mars, FMCG, different tech companies. And so you sort of learn what you like and what you don't like. And without trying to discredit agency land, because there are some fantastic agencies out there and I'm really proud of our partners. But I was sort of sick and tired of constantly talking about transformation and constantly chasing a P&L, and then really, really, really annoyed at the volume of brilliant work that just wasn't ever getting made. And so decided to make a bit of a transition.
It's really interesting that. It was funny, I interviewed Mike Cesario from Liquid Death, actually. And the very reason he created Liquid Death is he was sick and tired of coming up with really cool ideas that never saw the light of day, that you thought, I'm going to actually execute one of these ideas. Was that a frustration you felt?
100%. That's exactly why I left Adland, with no disrespect to anyone that's there. But I'm sure everyone would resonate to that bottom drawer full of great work, that there isn't a brave client or a company or a budget to be able to make it happen. So I decided the only way to do that was to get into the driving seat to be able to do just that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And with all your experience on agency side, what can, someone on client side like myself who's been on the other side, what can we learn from agencies, flipping it the other way?
Yeah, I think the power of creativity, it can't be underestimated. And any good agency, it's what they live for. It's in their DNA. It's the product, right? The product is creative, and the job that can do. It's firmly my belief in any role that I take that creativity is the ultimate multiplier for performance and for business. I think there's a benefit in agencies for the talent that you develop, having that multi-category background, being able to not only understand different businesses, different categories, different strategies, but also understand how to present to them, how to bring to life work. And in marketing, it's very important to strategically know what you're doing, but it's also very important to bring people on that journey to understand what you're going to be doing as well.
Yeah. I think one of my biggest learnings is creativity is more than the creative.
Yes.
And we get them confused, don't we? But actually creativity should be how you approach a business problem, how you think about your route to market, how you come up with a new idea. It can be so much more than we focus often in our agency relationships on the creative, the end thing.
Yeah.
And I found the best relationship I had where I've taken the team and brought them in really early and said, solve my business problem, right? Before we get to whatever the communication might look like. And I think sometimes, you and I have got a great friend in common, Lil, who I work with at LucasAid actually, and the team at Grey. And I had a great experience then because actually when I had a real chunky business problem, she was incredible. Having her in the room when we're talking about the reformulation we were doing and how we win back our consumer. It wasn't to do with what the poster might look like. It was to do with the business problem. And you've got such creative people out there who think differently and can come up with ideas.
100%.
It's involving them early, isn't it?
And Lil is she's got superpowers. So everyone needs a Lil in the room, without a doubt. The other thing that, one of the things that I've adopted that I did actually do in agency side that I brought to client side roles, we used to call them top to tops when I worked at BBDO. I call them a strategic council, which is bringing in, so I work closely with 21st Century Brands, Uncommon, I work with PhD, bringing in the most senior leaders that are close to my business on a quarterly basis and setting them exactly that. What's the biggest problem that I'm facing at Monzo today? And how can you help? And it's sort of pointless for me to write a brief because there might not be a target audience, there might not be a proposition for it, but it's really needs to be solved. And then the collective minds can come together.
Yeah.
And can share that back, which is really, really helpful.
And flipping, actually, when I had a short period of time where I was kind of freelancing, and what I found interesting is that all my freelancing gigs came from agencies I'd worked with, not it weren't client side. There were agencies asking me, help us understand the CMO, help us get under the, get into their minds, and how do you pitch and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what was very interesting is that the first question I asked them, and none of them had really thought about this, is just phone them up and say, what's the biggest thing keeping you awake at nights?
Yeah.
Solve that. Everything else follows. And it's so simple, but I think we're so used to a transactional relationship where it's about, here's the brief, give me the answer.
Yeah.
This is my comms. You're there just to do this bit of the comms process, sort of thing.
Completely.
Start way earlier.
And the other thing that is a big misconception in agencies is that the brief is a finite document.
Oh,
that
totally.
you get to this point where, ta-da, we've got a business problem, here's the brief. And then we do brief an agency and they may go off for 2 weeks of strategy or whatever and then go to creative. But the likelihood of that brief is the same by the time they present a creative idea is very slim.
Yeah.
And the amount of conversations that will have happened about that problem prior to that moment. So the key thing is to immerse yourself in our business, like not just from in a meeting, like a presenting, responding, but actually get to know your clients, get to know those people, be on Slack, be where the conversation is happening and be in the moment. Because otherwise, whatever you present will definitely be out of date by the time you present it.
That's brilliant advice. That is. In fact, you give me a bit of deja vu, because when I was doing this freelancing thing, working for a number of different agencies, I wrote one presentation which is 10 things you should know about a CMO.
Yeah.
Point number 1 was the brief is never the brief.
Yeah.
Right. Because like you say, it changes like the moment ink's dry.
Yeah.
But secondly, it's not usually written by the CMO.
No.
And it's usually written to a template that has a set load of questions, which may be the right, they may be the wrong questions. And it doesn't guide you to actually what the business needs you to do. So my top advice was, when you get the brief, immediately phone up the client, spend some time with them and go, what are you really trying to solve?
Yeah.
Who makes the decision? How will it be made? All those kind of things. There's a lot of questions you need to get under the skin of. Let's move on to, before we jump into Monzo, which I'm looking forward to doing, you had a stint at Klarna, didn't you? So
I did.
What is Klarna and what was your role there and what are you most proud of?
Yeah, of course. So Klarna is a buy now pay later company. You see them in checkout. I joined them sort of start of lockdown. So I was there for 3-4 years, initially as their UK CMO, head of marketing. And at that time, very much responsible for changing behavior. Like there was a big misconception that buy now, pay later equals bad. Lots of headlines of like payday loan sharks in disguise. And so my job was really to come in and fix that, and super proud, built out our public affairs offering, built out our sort of like lobbying of government and press to allow a big shift in perception. And also the problem didn't exist with the Klarna's consumers. It only existed with people that didn't use the product. I then had 2 other roles in that company. One was head of brand globally, very much responsible for codifying all of the things that worked, what made Klarna, and essentially centralizing that and being able to deploy that to 35 markets. And then the last job, which was the one where I didn't really sleep, because I was responsible for 35 markets. So massive growth in those 4 years that I was there, right? So from UK, Europe to US, parts of Eastern Europe, Australia. And so for want of a better term, the throat to choke for 35 markets equals no sleep. So
yeah. I've done a kind of global role for the last 4 years. I totally know what you mean. It's like you get up and basically Australia's going just about finishing their day. By the end of the day, the US is waking up and about to start their day. So you have this really busy beginning of the day and the end of the day. And in the middle, you've got Europe. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a bit of a challenge.
100%. But it was a great learning ground, and I can't speak more fondly of my time there and the people that I worked with. It was superb company, and they're continuing to do their thing. But when Monzo comes calling, you don't not pick up the phone. Like Monzo is one of those brands, an iconic British institution that I'm super proud of and an early adopter and early user of, and just couldn't not take that call.
Before you took the job then, you were already a customer of Monzo, so you already had that affinity with it, and you talked about being early adopter.
Yeah.
What is it about that experience with Monzo that gets you so passionate?
Like 9 years ago, as when Monzo launched, I was living in London. I was a lot younger, and this hot coral card just kept popping up. And there was this FOMO that I felt. Certain friends were getting it, sort of like a membership in a club that you weren't part of yet. And they had such a smart go-to-market strategy. And so from that point, I was addicted. As a marketer, you just want to be part of that, especially at that time. There was no pink Klarna. There was no finance brand doing this differently. Monzo were the first. And so they had this hot coral, amazing distinctive asset, amazing attitude and tone of voice. And so became a user, stayed a user until I ended up moving to Australia. And then as soon as I came back to the UK, I reinstated my account and I've been a user ever since.
Well, you loved it so much you joined the company.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
I want to talk about the emotion of money, because actually I think sometimes when we look at, if I take the System 1 database and we look at most financial services communication, it's pretty dull and pretty functional. And yet, if you think money is the source of stress, anxiety, fear, it can also be the source of joy, of course. Nothing like you discover a £5 note in your pocket you've forgotten about the night before or whatever, or you get a bonus at the end of the year or these kind of things. So it's our relationship with money determines how we feel. It determines whether we can do something or not do something. It can constrain us. It can set us free. There's so much wrapped up in money. Yeah, it's a very emotional thing. But why is it that the finance industry seem to make it so much about the percentage APRs rather than what money does for you?
It's baffling, to be honest. Like, money is such a taboo. There's so many stats and data about friends or family members that owe each other money, and you just don't want to ask for it back because it's awkward. And it's just that thing that we don't really learn in school. We learn economics, we learn maths, we don't learn financial well-being or financial wellness. And as a result of that, there's all these feelings: avoidance, like anxiety, stress, like literally putting your head in the sand because you don't want to deal with a bill. That is like the default for most people because you don't feel equipped. And I think that a lot of the incumbents, a lot of the category, they benefit from that lack of engagement and that lack of involvement. Like, if you don't care and you're not involved, you're sort of happy with the status quo. And so that's a great way for them to continue to make money. Whereas, we know at Monzo that we want to set people up to really go on a journey through their financial life, to help them go from like small wins to being able to, not just open an account, but maybe try a savings product through to a life leap where you can get a mortgage, whatever it might be. And so much so that for us, we know that when you get that progress, when you have that momentum, money feels different. Like, money does feel better, and there is joy. There is joy to your point in the moment of being paid, or that sneaky, a friend sending back the $5 they owed you. But yeah, and so for us, it's all about that. It's all about the other side and making sure that people know that money can be better.
Yeah, and small little things like every time we go on a holiday, we always use our Monzo card because it's the one that doesn't charge you. Yeah, there's little things like that, isn't it? That actually add all the 3 or 5% that you get charged by other cards that sort of add up 100%. On your holiday. And it's, even though it might not be that much overall, it just feels like you're getting ripped off. Why am I getting like this big charge every time I go out for a pizza?
Completely. And I think the other thing that's I guess evident in the world that we live in, where everything needs to be easy. We just want experiences, our companies that we invest our time with to know us. Yeah. And then when we do invest our time, that if you're opening your phone, you're opening an app, that experience is just seamless. That's not the case for a lot of the other category. It's actually quite difficult. It's quite complex. T's and C's are incredibly lengthy and confusing. And so we pride ourselves on being incredibly magically simple and making sure it's as intuitive as possible. And if you bother to share information with us, then we're going to use it appropriately and properly to make your experience better.
Yeah. Now I want to talk about experience because there's probably nothing that gets me more emotional than bad customer service, right? But let me talk about the stats. So I did dig out I did dig out your stats on to see how you're doing, and I think this was an Ipsos survey, wasn't it, of customer satisfaction. So overall customer service quality, Monzo number 1 at 80%. Starling number 2 at 76, then Nationwide at 67, then the rest of the banks follow from there. Online banking experience as well. Monzo number 1, 88%, Starling Bank 86, tied at 77, and the rest of them in the sort of 60s after there. Yep. So both the overall quality and online quality coming out number 1. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. I think it's no surprise hearing that when it comes to our consumers, they're more likely to, 7 times more likely to use the word love when talking about Monzo than any other bank, which is mad.
That is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is a lot. I mean, that's not a small difference. That's a very big difference.
Big difference. And also like emotion in banking, like you get emotion and money, right? But like thinking about throwing emotion at some of the other companies you just mentioned on that list doesn't really love. It's not the word that would come to mind. And so I'm super proud and super lucky, right, that we have that with our community of users that really care about not just their bank, but Monzo.
But I think it's a juxtaposition because I mean, like if you take like a tax return when you have to do that, I really fear it, and it's like intimidating. But the kind of almost the satisfaction you feel when it's done is like it's equally as as great, isn't it? Completely. Like that half. And if you're making it easy for people, then that's like I can see why people might kind of use this, use those kind of words.
People just want to feel capable and confident, right? So like if you can help them feel more capable with their money, they'll get more confident over time. And so everything we do is designed to help bring them on that journey.
Now, one of the challenges I think that you and other banks like you face is the change from, I guess, what we used to call bricks and mortar, industry phrase, but the local branch where you could just pop in, you could see somebody, you could resolve it in a conversation. Or I've been a First Direct customer for many years. I was one of the early adopters of First Directs, and the fact that you didn't have to wait, you just went straight through to someone. They're always helpful. I mean, had amazing experience with them for many, many years. But now we've automated things. I think we have to work much harder on the humanity. And I know we were sharing a bit of an experience earlier. And so I had this awful experience recently with one of your competitor banks that begins with T and ends in I. But anyway, but I'd got a transaction in, foreign transaction into my account, and they suddenly I got this email going, you haven't responded to our messages. I'm like, oh no, what's happened? And what I discovered is in the app, buried about 3 or 4 clicks, like you had to go to support, messages, to the chat. Buried in there was this request for me to provide a whole list of evidence to support a transaction that had gone through, in terms of they wanted emails, contacts, contracts, a whole lot of stuff, right? There's a whole lot of things, right? I was like, oh my God, what's this? And it was all couched in this very financial language, like, well, we're approved by the financial services thing, and as per the terms and conditions you signed, we have the right to ask you for all this, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And it also, the bit that made it worse, actually, interestingly, it said, we value the safety and security of all our members, and therefore we're investigating you. And I just thought, well, hang on, I'm a member, right?
Yeah,
so I'm a member, and now you're investigating me. You suddenly make me feel like I've done something wrong. Yeah. It's quite scary language. And, and anyway, so I was like, oh no. And I was packing for holiday as well, just to make it worse. And the night I was packing for holiday, exactly, right? So I was up till midnight. I was copying. The other thing that made it quite funny is he said, please provide everything in PDF format, because that's the only format our system will accept. I'm like, oh, okay, let me work a little bit harder to make your life easy, shall I? I'll go and translate everything into I know, so I had to put this little dossier together, did little PDFs, uploaded it, sent it in. Anyway, went on holiday, quite relieved. So, phew, panic over.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think it was like the Wednesday night, we flew out to Lanzarote. And on the Saturday, I thought, I wonder if I got a reply to that message. So I went into the app. And then
Having done all that work.
Yeah, I've done exactly.
On the holiday, sending like PDF after PDF. Okay, cool.
Exactly. So I was just celebrating. I got on the plane. You know what I mean?
I've done all this stuff. It's all fixed.
Yeah. I thought, nothing to worry about. And I saw this string of messages. And again, you had to go deep into the app to find them. And it asked me for some 2 more documents. I think it asked me for a tax return and something else like SEC. And then 13 hours after the first message, the second message said, we're suspending your account with immediate effect. I'm like, what? This is crazy.
That's bonkers.
And I went into the account and it was shut. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't do anything. And then to upload the 2 extra things that I wanted to upload, I got on my laptop and went to my account to upload them. I couldn't get in because I'd been blocked. So the only thing I could use was the chat function, which I couldn't upload the documents I'd asked for. So I got in this like trapped world. Do you know what I mean? It was painful.
That is wild.
And then so I was like really quite stressful. And I thought, now fortunately, as it happened, I didn't happen to have any transactions going in and out of the account at that point. So nothing got stopped. But I thought, what if I had employees? Like, what if I was a little business and had employees? What if I had a supplier to pay?
Yeah, for sure.
What if I was waiting on a big payment to come in to pay off my mortgage? There's all manner of things that could happen. Anyway, the irony of it was I was obviously a bit upset at this point. And I said, please send me your complaints procedure. Right. And didn't hear anything. Right. And then I got this email, right, a couple of days later going, thank you for your complaints. We've sent it off and you'll hear back in 72 hours. And I'm like, well, I haven't complained yet.
That is wild.
Like, what's going on? And then I got a couple of days later again and said, here is our decision on your complaint. And I'm like, well, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
The complaint I've not yet made. And it was a long message about how right they were to ask all these questions. And at the end, it said, however, we do think we were a little bit speedy in shutting down your account. Please accept our apologies, and we're going to open it back up again.
Wow.
But I thought I couldn't even get the complaint right.
How long did that take?
That took, I'd say, 10 days. It was the whole holiday and about 3 or 4 days. So it's about 10 days from beginning to end. So it was suspended for 10 days.
And are you going to stay a customer?
No way.
No,
Oh, come on. No way at all.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. There's another irony.
Yeah.
This will really make you laugh. So like 2 days after that, I got an email saying, we'd like you to be part of an advertising campaign for the bank.
Okay. Perfect. That is okay.
Which part of me was going, oh,
yes, please.
Like in a way, I was like, yes, that would be funny, right, but also awkward, and I don't know what I'd say. No. Do you know what I mean? But like, if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago, I'd have been, of course,
completely.
I'm a podcast host, right?
100%.
I'd love to be in an advert talking about like how the bank supports young creators. Yeah, I wish, you know what I mean? But as in emerging, whatever.
That is honestly bonkers,
isn't it?
Like, interestingly, so we have obviously 400,000 business banking customers, hopefully 400,001 after that experience.
It's coming in this afternoon.
Good. And typically people will open a business bank account because you're creating a business, right?
Yeah.
Or they switch because their current provider has pissed them off.
Yeah.
And so you have to know when things like that happen to be able to acquire those new users. Yeah. And that is a very good.
They're an advert for you, right?
Completely. But yeah, that is honestly mental. Yeah.
But customer service is so important, isn't it? And it's just a little example, but it just shows how important that is.
It speaks volumes that some organizations don't appreciate their every touch point's a marketing asset.
Yeah.
As down to your staff that are speaking to your customers, right? Your customer service people are as important as the advertising you put out, as the content you put into your product. So well, thanks to us. So we've got a new customer.
Indeed,
Great.
you have done exactly. I mean, the funny thing is, you'll feel my pain here. But as a marketer, it's funny actually when something like that happens. I go into my marketing brain spins around. So I stop thinking like a customer, and I just go, right. What you need to do is I haven't sent them this letter, but I was going to go right. First of all, make sure your customer reaches the audience, right? Yeah. Don't assume. Pick up the phone or whatever, Secondly, design the process to make it easy to complete, not make it hard. Because you make it hard, you're less likely to do it, right? Yeah. Obvious. If you need to escalate, be more and more human in your escalation, not more and more robotic, right? So if something goes wrong or if there's something complex, don't use the chat bot.
No.
Pick up the phone, right? Obviously. And the old thing my dad used to say when I was a lad is the customer's always right. And I used to think, oh, of course, customers not always right, are they? But you need to have that assumption because the customer might be on holiday. The customer might be up till midnight packing.
100%.
The customer might have other things going on. Do you know what I mean?
Having to PDF documents and send them in.
Yeah.
I mean, customer centricity is like, I guess, the modern day version of customer is always right. But as long as you put the customer at the heart of everything you do, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. But anyway, let's come back to Monzo because you're on a mission and you've also been thinking about the positioning of Monzo, haven't you? So how do you position yourself as an online bank compared to other online banks?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we are on a mission to make money work for everyone. Fundamentally, we believe that, we win when our consumers win, which is very, very important statement after the story we just talked about. We started this brand strategy work probably, summer last year. And it's not like designed to bring brand new information, right? Like any good brand strategy should be codifying everything brilliant about what makes Monzo and just distilling that into such a succinct way that everyone can celebrate and use to drive the business forward. So that's been the job, that's been the task. And I've been taking, one of the team taking the company on that journey and super excited about that, especially as you think about growing with new product offerings, thinking about growing in new markets. That brand strategy piece is going to be super fundamental to allow us to do that without losing what makes Monzo.
And how's that going to come to life? You've been working on a launch of it?
Yes. I think we're going out the same week as our new big brand campaign. So this podcast, we should have gone out on Sunday during Britain's Got Talent. But we have a massive, big, bold brand campaign. We worked with Uncommon on it. And back to that conversation we're talking about earlier of like all of the feels about money, all of those, anxious, avoidance, stress versus the fact that, on Monzo, money just feels different. Money never felt like this. That is the big brand platform we've worked on. And I'm super excited for everyone to see it. I don't think any not even banking category competitor. I don't think anything's like it in advertising in the market at the moment.
Can we expect some hot coral in amongst it all?
100%. The strategy coming in is to paint the UK hot coral this year, and next is the world. But very much so, like you all know this, and as for most listeners, but it takes most companies 70 years to get a distinctive asset.
Yeah.
Monzo's been around for 9, and we've already got 2: the hot coral and the card. So hot coral is very important to me. But most organizations can get quite, I guess, tired of things. And so my job in marketing is to make people know that that's the most important asset we have when it comes to making sure that we imprint Monzo in consumers' hearts and minds.
Yeah. And how do you make sure the campaign is going to actually resonate with your audience?
Yeah, I mean, we've testing, research up front, I should say, first and foremost. Back to that point, I mean, one of the best data points I found out during our initial research on that, like, what does money feel like, is that 1 in 3 would prefer to deep scrub their bathroom than look at their savings account.
No. That's quite a mental picture. That
100%. Who wants to get a toothbrush out and start scrubbing tire? Like what? Like versus.
Was that from a focus group? Did that come out as? Does that all?
A piece of 1,000 study research. So it's a big piece of research that we looked into as part of the data research at the start. But
to get people choices: deep scrub your bathroom or check your savings account.
Correct.
Right? Which would you do?
And people would prefer to get around that toilet seat. So partly that, in terms of making sure that the work's going to work and you're developing a brand platform and create a platform that resonates to like true human insight. And then now we've had the campaign edit locked for some time. We tested it with System 1. Very delighted to say that I think we tested our first offline without any amends, and we're in the top 10% of the banking category already, which is pretty good. There's always a sweat moment where you're like waiting for that video to go through. Unclear direction of what needed to be changed. So I'm really confident that we've made some amends to actually even get higher than that.
Great.
So yeah.
Oh, that's super exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Well, hopefully anyone watching and listening at this point will have seen the campaign as well.
Yes.
We're recording this a little bit before it goes live, but hopefully they can see that.
Yeah, and expect to see it over the next couple of months as well. And not just, we're talking about the TV ad here, though. There's going to be lots of interesting things to really paint the UK hot coral, lots of moments to embed Monzo in culture, and to truly do things that hopefully help break the internet for a minute or two.
Nice. I interested in your phrase, embedding culture, and Uncommon are very, that's one of the things they stand for, isn't it? Having conversations in culture, or as Niels might say, dancing on a fault line in culture, all this kind of thing. So that's very much what they're about, is, doing that. What does that mean, and how do you do that? Because I think it's one of those things that often people aspire to do, not often do. But what's your advice on that?
So from my perspective, lots of brands and companies hijack culture. Very often, traditional sponsorship is a very good example of like hijacking, like fandom, for example. Very few contribute to culture and find ways to meaningfully add value to a community. So for me, Monzo is built from a community, right? We started co-creating our product with our users 9 years ago. So it's very important that whatever we do, whatever community we start to speak to or culture we want to get involved in, that we have a meaningful role. And then you can spark a conversation. You can find that thing that's either annoying them or that gets them excited, and find a way to like truly add value both for them and also for Monzo as well. So I'm very excited about we do something called Year in Monzo. It's an end of year data wrap story. And within that, you get lots of richness of data of like how people use their money, what they spend it on. The best part of that for me is knowing that the UK predominantly are massive fans of Greggs. The bakery Greggs.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
London is Pret. Everywhere else is Greggs. And so the spoiler is to expect some very exciting things coming up with us and Greggs over the course of the next few weeks and months.
I wasn't expecting that. I like it. That's really good. That's proper customer insight, isn't it?
100%. And I mean, anyone I grew up outside of London, so I was a big Greggs.
Yeah, it's no surprise. No, it's London and the rest of the country are like two different places.
100%.
Yeah, mate, that's really good. I wanted last week we had Craig Ingalls on the podcast having a chat about what it takes to be a CMO. He's got he's been at the top of his game for many, many years. You're very much on the rise, and you kind of working up, which is so exciting. I'd love to know what you've learned in your kind of career so far. What are the guiding principles that have kind of got you to where you are today? And one thing I know you mentioned to me which resonated a lot with me, is like, not asking for permission.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was a young lad, just kind of cutting my teeth in brand management, you very much felt, I had to tick all the boxes. So
100%.
I have to be a brand manager, then a senior brand manager. I have to work on a big account and a small account, and I have to kind of complete my PDP.
Yeah.
Well, it's the old model
Structures.
of structure, and like you have to earn your spurs and stuff. But I love the little phrase is stop asking for permission when you tell me
ask
about
for
that.
forgiveness, don't ask for permission. 100%. I think it's no one ever taught me that. But like 100%, that's one of the things that has led me to be where I am, is very much applying that into my daily life. Like, you'll quickly learn that no matter what room you're in, someone's always starting out, whether that's starting out as a CEO, starting out as a CMO, or starting out as an account executive or a marketing manager. It's day one for somebody sometime. And so not everyone always knows what they're doing. Everyone always has a little bit of their own internal monologue, their own internal anxiety. And so never wait. Like, if you've got an idea, if you believe that you need to do something. I think my best example, and it's a really weird one, was like, when I was in advertising, I knew that I needed to go to New York and run a workshop for this big client. I think I was 24, 25, and I could tell that my boss at the time wasn't going to tell me to go, or didn't know if he should. And so I just was like, I need to book these flights. I need to get to this workshop. And I just did it. And there was no scolding. There was no, like, made the company money. But it taught me at that point, that permission doesn't really get given very often. So go do right. And hopefully you'll learn a lot on the way. So that's one of my main things. I think, as a leader, I'm someone that very much believes in, I'm quite calm. My default sort of energy is quite like relaxed. I don't really get, like, touch wood, very stressed very often. But I believe in, I guess, empowering my leadership team and empowering those people to have a safe space to think, to truly ideate, and supporting them to really drive home their KPIs and their goals. So, like, while I might work with them very clearly on the strategy, on the frameworks of where they need to get to, how they get there, all on them, and I support and champion them along the way to make sure that they can experiment, have fun, bring their team along that journey. And so that's another sort of
that's a really nice style. It's interesting because I'd almost knit the two things together, because one thing I found when I started leading people is how much I valued them being proactive.
Yeah,
there's nothing more exciting than when they come 100%. To you and go, I've booked the flight to New York, I'm going to do the facilitation with the client, this is what we're going to achieve, it's going to lead to this. I'm like, yes,
100%,
brilliant. Don't wait for me to tell you, because I've got all my things to deal with. It's like, just step into it.
It's incredible. And it's like, be like care. Like, there's so many great people in our team at Monzo, and I'm so proud to be working with all of the marketing people there. But there's lots of them that are like learning, like, just because they want to learn and they want to experiment and try things, and they come to me with like, hey, I've tried this thing with AI and I want to show you. And like, that contagiousness to learn and to experiment and to do different is so important. And I think that will only set everyone off on a really strong trajectory.
Now, with do differently, of course, might go wrong.
Yes,
as well.
100%.
How do you deal with that?
Fundamentally, any good leader is in it with their team. There's never a moment where any of my team would feel that I am not by their side. Whilst I might not be in the execution always, if things go right, we celebrate together. If things go wrong, I'm standing in front of them to help protect and ensure that they know that I don't even think wrong is the right term. I prefer more like learning. What happened? I believe if we did something, that's a success, right? Yeah. We did something that didn't work. Yeah. Okay, well, what did we learn? Yeah. That's fine. But we did it. Remember that we did it. Like, a lot of companies swirling, like, trying to get to that perfect thing, where actually, if you just did 10 things that were probably 80% there, you'd be far more better off.
Totally. I wish I remembered this story more accurately, but it was a few years ago. I was doing a session on failure, and someone told me about, I think it was in a big car company, where this guy had basically cost like $20 million, I think it was, to the company. Yeah. And he went to resign to his boss, and the boss turned around and said, I didn't spend 20 million in your education to waste it. Yeah. Now go and put it to good use.
That's insane.
I thought, wow. I'm like, that's amazing.
That's actually just gave me shivers.
I know.
That's great.
Just like, how powerful is that? I mean, the payback on that is going to be just immense, but it's true, isn't it? Like, 100%. You've learned so much.
Yeah. And like, people aren't like, no one's ever always going to get it right. Like, that is just not how the world works. And so especially in marketing where we need to look at growth, performance, CRM, life cycle, brand, media, comms, community, social, like the list goes on and changes every day. So like there is no world in which everything's always going to be right. So providing that psychological safety net and that proper culture where people feel heard, valued, and supported.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is
like non-negotiable for me. Human first is like fundamentally the most important thing that anyone should be doing.
And no one's got a crystal ball. And we forget this because obviously people look back at go, oh yes, I always planned this amazing success. You know, success has many fathers and failure is an orphan or whatever the phrase is, But it makes decision making hard though, doesn't it? And this is something I've struggled with, I think, in my career is like when to make a decision and how to make a decision. Because particularly the further you go up in your career, the more decisions get pushed to you.
Yes.
And you don't have certainty, do you? And sometimes things are 51-49 in each, in each favor. How do you approach decision making?
Yeah, I think incredibly practically, like definitely look at the science, definitely look at if it's, I guess, IC work and I'm doing it myself, like spend the time to do it. But if it's been presented to me, read the science, read the strategy, read the hypothesis, and then trust your gut. Like ultimately, your gut will tell you if you feel like it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And like I trust my gut over my brain any day of the week. And it will get you so far. Yeah. It might be wrong, but absolutely when your stomach goes and you're excited, Yeah. Like back to the work when the team at Uncommon presented 3 routes and I was like, you just get the feels and you just know, you go for it. And we did research and the research worked fantastic. If it didn't come back as well, I still think we would have just gone with the ags. We believe in it so much.
Brilliant. Love it. Now, you're talking there about creativity as well. How do you foster creativity in an organization? Because it can be difficult, right? Because often organizations have processes. Yeah. They're often designed to go managed by data or by committee and process. Creativity rarely works in a kind of linear fashion like that. But how have you, because you got a very creative role and you come from a creative background. So how do you foster creativity in Monzo?
In a few ways. And I'm on a journey, right? So it's not fully there yet, but certainly by bringing the brand to the heart of the company, by embedding the brand in the business strategy and in every part of the business's roadmap and KPI, that's a way in which people can start to understand the importance and the value. When it comes to creative, like I believe that the best companies around the world have creative cultures. You walk into a Nike office or an Apple office or even Disney, right? And you know where you are instantly. Yeah. So my big thing that I'm working on at the moment is to do that for Monzo, right? We've got all of the ingredients there. We've got all of the magic of what makes Monzo Monzo. We've got that beautiful hot coral. Now my job is to really bring that into the heartland of every office and every remote worker in the company, right? How do you actually make everything feel like truly Monzo, truly coral, truly making people's lives better? Like, so we're here to make consumers' lives better. That's why we're here. And so creativity is a way for us to unlock that.
When you said, you think of Apple, thinking, I can imagine exactly what you're talking about. In terms of culture, I could write the culture down in my head as I perceive it. I've not worked at either place, but I could do that. So if I asked you in 5 years' time, what is the Monzo culture? How would you describe the Monzo culture that you're going to create?
I would describe it as incredibly human and consumer first, both human in terms of the people that work in the company and the people that we have the privilege of having as our customers. I would describe it as fundamentally, it's a place where we build things to help people win and we'll win with you. Yeah. And ultimately where we will put creativity first and we will look at ways in which we can spark and use ideas to really ignite conversation, both within our community, our 9 million users, but also the broader world.
Yeah. Maybe a question to round up with then. Yeah. So someone listening now, really inspired by your journey, inspired by the kind of what you're doing in the work and who you're working with, who you're working with as well. What would be your advice? Let's go back maybe 10 years or something. What would be, you talked about your 24-year-old self on the planes. I love that story. It's like, take the jump and it will appear. So what are the reflections or advice of the people that maybe sat there going, do you know what? I want a bit of what AJ's doing.
Yeah. I think no one knows at 20 what they like. Really, if you do know what you want to do, well done, because I definitely didn't. So I think don't be afraid of that. Like lean into the fact that most people don't know and don't feel like you have to have it worked out by a certain date or a certain time in your life. Because trust me, it gets better, it gets worse, it gets better, it gets better. So have that mentality and know that, your mate might be doing X, but you'll be doing Y. Yeah. So be kind to yourself is the first most important thing I would say. And then back to our conversation on don't ask for permission, go get. Like, if you want to go work at a company, email their CEO, pick up the phone and get through. Like, don't just wait for a job application to arrive, submit it on LinkedIn, and then expect magic to happen. Make your own magic happen.
Oh, I love that. That's really good. Very similar, actually, feelings for me, actually, because I wish I'd jumped earlier. Because I think I felt when I was maybe in my 20s, I didn't have the experience. I didn't have the complete, top trump set of skills and experience, whatever. But actually, as you go through life, you take on, beautifully more responsibility, families and mortgages, all that kind of thing. But also you have a bit less freedom, actually. So early, you can take a few bets and see how they go.
100%.
And the other thing I think I don't know, I've probably tried and failed at 3 or 4 things, but you learn so much. And it's like, don't assume the first thing is going to be a roaring success. It might be the 3rd or 4th thing. So the sooner you get on that journey, the sooner you're going to get to the sort of, the breakout success that you hope for, to start now, right?
Completely. And then,
start small as well.
And if it doesn't work out, treat it as a learning, not a failure.
Yeah. I think that's the secret to it, actually, because if you're worried about failure, you'll never take the jump. Completely. And you've got to go, it doesn't matter if it fails.
No.
And it's like the Daniel Kahneman, bless him, who passed away recently. There's one of his phrases which is, nothing is as important as it feels when you're thinking about it, sort of thing. And when you're thinking about doing something, you can end up being really anxious, and you can kind of talk yourself out of it, can't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I think that's a lovely place to end, actually. So take the jump, everybody, if you're listening to this, and then message us with what you end up doing. And AJ, thank you, mate.
Thank you so much.
So cool.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for listening or watching Uncensored CMO. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please do hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching, hit subscribe there as well. I'd also love to get a review. Reviews make a big difference on other people discovering the show. So please do leave a review wherever you get your podcast. If you want to contact me, you can do. I'm over on X at UncensoredCMO, or on LinkedIn, where I'm under my own name, John Evans. Thanks for listening and watching. I'll see you next time.